1960s, Europe was building some of the fastest automobiles the world had ever seen. And the most surprising part is that many of them didn't look like record-breaking machines. Some looked like elegant grand tourers, others looked like refined luxury cars, and a few looked like rolling works of art. But beneath those beautiful bodies was something completely different. Speed. A lot of speed. And trust me, more than one of the automobiles on this list would still be capable of surprising many modern drivers. Let's begin. 1969 de Tomaso Mangusta. This car didn't look like one of Europe's fastest automobiles. It looked like a piece of Italian art. And that's exactly why it surprised so many people. Because while Ferrari and Lamborghini dominated the headlines in the late 1960s, De Tomaso was building something far more exclusive, something very few people knew about, and something incredibly fast. At first glance, the Mangusta looked like it had come straight from a futuristic auto show. The body was extremely low, the lines were sharp, and the rear section, with its famous gullwing-style engine covers, made it one of the most striking designs of the entire decade. But here's where things become truly interesting, because beneath that elegant Italian bodywork was not a European engine. It was a massive 4.7-liter Ford V8, an unusual combination that offered the best of both worlds. Italian design, American power. The result was impressive. Depending on the version, the Mangusta produced around 306 horsepower, a very serious figure for 1969. Thanks to that performance, it could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in approximately 5.8 seconds and reach a top speed of nearly 155 miles per hour. And that's exactly what made this car so special. Because it looked like a refined Italian grand tourer, yet delivered performance capable of rivaling some of Europe's most famous sports cars. Its production was also extremely limited. Fewer than 500 examples were built, making it one of the rarest automobiles on this list. Today, the finest de Tomaso Mangustas easily exceed $300,000, while exceptional examples can reach considerably higher figures. 1968 Ferrari 365 GTB Daytona. This car didn't look like a late 1960s automobile. It looked like a machine from the future. And that's exactly how people reacted when Ferrari unveiled it. Because while many sports cars still relied on rounded, traditional styling, the Daytona introduced a more aggressive, more modern, and far more intimidating appearance. At first glance, it was impossible to ignore. The incredibly long hood, the low-slung body, and the perfect proportions gave it a presence few automobiles could match. It looked fast, even standing still. And here's where things become truly fascinating. Under the hood sat a spectacular 4.4-liter V12, producing around 352 horsepower. Thanks to its advanced engineering and excellent aerodynamics, it could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in approximately 5.4 seconds, and reach a top speed of nearly 174 miles per hour. An absolutely astonishing figure for 1968. In fact, at launch, it was considered one of the fastest production cars in the world, and that contrast is exactly what turned it into a legend. Because it looked like an elegant Italian work of art, yet delivered performance capable of competing with virtually anything on the road during its era. It's no surprise that many enthusiasts consider the Daytona one of the most beautiful Ferraris ever built. It combined design, exclusivity, and speed in an almost perfect package. Today, the finest Ferrari Daytonas easily exceed $700,000, while exceptional examples can sell for several $1 million at international auctions. 1967 Lamborghini 400 GT. This car didn't look like one of Europe's fastest automobiles. It looked like an elegant grand tourer built to cover long distances in style. And that was exactly the surprise. Because while Lamborghini was still a relatively young company, it was already building cars capable of challenging the very best manufacturers in Europe. At first glance, it projected sophistication. The lines were graceful, the proportions were flawless, and the bodywork designed by touring Superleggera possessed an elegance that few sports cars of the era could match. It didn't look aggressive, it looked refined. But beneath that beautiful body was something far more serious. A magnificent 4-liter V12 producing around 320 horsepower, an extraordinary figure for 1967. Thanks to that power, it could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in approximately 6.5 seconds and reach a top speed of nearly 160 miles per hour, a figure that placed it among the fastest European cars of the late 1960s. Today, the finest Lamborghini 400 GTs easily exceed $400,000, while the most exceptional examples continue to climb in value among collectors. And now I want to know something. Of the cars we've seen so far, which one would you choose? The exclusive de Tomaso Mangusta, the legendary Ferrari Daytona, or this refined Lamborghini 400 GT? Let me know in the comments. 1965 Iso Grifo A3. This car didn't have the Ferrari name. It didn't have Lamborghini's prestige. And that's exactly why it remains one of the best-kept secrets of the 1960s. Because while most enthusiasts were talking about Italy's biggest automotive brands, Iso was quietly building one of the fastest automobiles in Europe, and very few people knew it. At first glance, it looked like a pure racing machine. The body was low, wide, and extraordinarily aggressive for its era. Every line seemed designed with speed in mind, and in reality, it was. The project was heavily influenced by motorsport, something that could be seen in every detail of the car. But here's where things become truly fascinating, because beneath that stunning Italian bodywork sat a massive 5.4-liter Chevrolet V8, a combination that became one of the most successful formulas of the 1960s. Depending on the specification, it produced around 365 horsepower. Thanks to that performance, it could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in approximately 5.5 seconds and reach speeds approaching 170 miles per hour. And that contrast is exactly what makes the Grifo so special, because it looked like an elegant Italian Grand Tourer, yet delivered performance capable of competing with Ferrari, Lamborghini, and virtually every rival of its generation. Its production was also extremely limited, which makes it one of the rarest and most desirable automobiles of the entire decade today. Currently, the finest Iso Grifo A3 examples can easily exceed $1 million at major international auctions. 1965 Jensen Interceptor. This car didn't look like one of Europe's fastest automobiles. It looked like a luxurious British Grand Tourer, and that was exactly the surprise. Because while many sports cars of the 1960s tried to appear aggressive and radical, the Jensen followed a completely different philosophy. At first glance, it projected sophistication, the long body, the flowing lines, and the styling by the Italian design house. Touring gave it a far more refined presence than most of its rivals. It looked like an automobile built to cross Europe in absolute comfort, but under the hood, the story was very different. Because Jensen chose a formula that was already proving incredibly effective. European design, American power. The Interceptor was equipped with a massive 6.3-liter Chrysler V8, producing around 325 horsepower. And this is where things become truly interesting. Because despite its focus on luxury and comfort, the Interceptor could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in approximately 6.5 seconds. And reach speeds approaching 140 miles per hour, more than enough to make it one of the fastest Grand Tourers of its era. Today, the finest Jensen Interceptors typically range between $60,000 and $150,000, depending on condition and specification. 1967 Porsche 911S. This car looked small, discreet, almost modest compared to some of the giants we've seen on this list. And that's exactly why it surprised so many people. Because while Ferrari, Lamborghini, and Maserati grabbed attention with huge engines and exotic bodywork, Porsche was proving there was another path to speed, one based on engineering. At first glance, the 911 already carried the silhouette that was becoming an icon, the round headlights, the unmistakable roofline, and proportions that seemed simple, yet worked perfectly. It didn't look like a supercar, but it was much faster than its size suggested. And here's where things become interesting. Because mounted behind the rear axle was a 2.0-liter flat six, producing around 160 horsepower. That figure may not sound impressive compared to the V12S on this list, But the Porsche had a major advantage. It weighed far less. As a result, it could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in approximately 6.8 seconds and reach a top speed of nearly 140 miles per hour. An extraordinary figure for an automobile powered by just a 2-liter engine. It's no surprise that the 911 went on to become one of the most successful sports cars in automotive history. Today, the finest 1967 Porsche 911. S examples can easily exceed $250,000 among collectors. And now, I want to know something. Which one would you choose for a drive across Europe in 1967? The brutal Iso Grifo, the elegant Jensen Interceptor, or this lightweight and precise Porsche 911S? Let me know in the comments. 1966 Maserati Ghibli. In 1966, very few European automobiles could keep up with this Maserati, and that's what makes it so surprising, because the Ghibli didn't look like a machine built to chase speed records. It looked like a work of Italian art. From the very first glance, it projected elegance. The impossibly long hood, the incredibly low body, and the lines penned by Giorgetto Giugiaro created a silhouette that seemed to move even while standing still. It wasn't aggressive like a Lamborghini. It wasn't flamboyant like some of its rivals. It was sophisticated. And perhaps that's why it has aged so beautifully. Under the hood sat a massive 4.7-liter V8, producing around 310 horsepower. It could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in approximately 6.3 seconds and reach a top speed of nearly 165 miles per hour, a speed that placed it among the fastest production automobiles in Europe. And that contrast is exactly what turned it into a legend. Because it looked like a refined grand tourer designed to cruise the French Riviera in complete comfort. Yet, it was capable of competing with some of the fastest sports cars on the continent. That was exactly what Maserati wanted, to combine luxury, beauty, and speed in a single automobile. And the result was extraordinary. Today, the finest first-generation Maserati Ghiblis easily exceed $300,000, while the most desirable examples command considerably higher figures. 1965. Bristol 409. If you weren't a true automotive enthusiast during the 1960s, you probably had never heard of Bristol. And that was exactly how the company wanted it, because Bristol didn't build cars to attract attention. It built cars for a very exclusive clientele. People who valued discretion as much as luxury. But here's the interesting part. Behind that reserved image was one of Britain's fastest grand tourers. At first glance, the lines were clean, the proportions were balanced, and everything projected a sense of handcrafted quality. It didn't look like a car designed to compete with Ferrari or Maserati, but it was much faster than its appearance suggested. And that was exactly part of its charm. Under the hood sat a large 5.2-liter Chrysler V8 producing around 250 horsepower. That figure may not sound extraordinary compared to some of the cars on this list, but the Bristol used its power very efficiently. As a result, it could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in approximately 7 seconds, and reach a top speed of nearly 130 miles per hour, an impressive figure for a luxury British Grand Tourer in 1965. Bristol also built its automobiles in extremely small numbers. That meant spotting one was already a rare event even when it was new. Today, that exclusivity has turned it into a true collector's piece. The finest Bristol 409s typically range between $80,000 and $200,000, depending on provenance and condition. 1966 Monteverdi High Speed 375S. While Ferrari, Lamborghini, and Maserati dominated the headlines, a small Swiss manufacturer was building something extraordinary, and very few people knew about it. That car was the Monteverdi, one of the best-kept secrets of the 1960s. At first glance, it had everything a European Grand Tourer should have: an elegant body, perfect proportions, and a design that projected exclusivity from every angle. It looked like an automobile destined for the most prestigious avenues in Europe, but the real story began under the hood, because Peter Monteverdi had a very clear philosophy: combine European refinement with American power, and the result was spectacular. The 375S used a massive 7.2-liter Chrysler V8, producing around 375 horsepower, And this is where things become truly interesting, because all that power made the Monteverdi one of the fastest automobiles in Europe. It could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in approximately 5.8 seconds, and reach speeds approaching 155 miles per hour. Figures that placed it alongside some of the far more famous Ferraris and Lamborghinis of the era. It looked like an exclusive grand tourer built for elegant long-distance travel, yet delivered performance capable of competing with some of the fastest sports cars on the continent. Its production was also extremely limited. Only a few dozen examples were ever built, which makes it one of the rarest automobiles on this entire list. Today, the finest Monteverdi High Speed 375S examples can easily exceed $500,000, while the most exceptional cars continue to appreciate among collectors. And when you look at all of these automobiles together, it becomes clear that European speed in the 1960s was very different from American speed, because while muscle cars relied on raw power, Europe pursued something more, speed combined with design. And perhaps that's why so many of these cars remain admired today. Now, I want to know your opinion. Out of all the cars we saw today, which one impresses you the most? The Ferrari Daytona, the elegant Maserati Ghibli, the exotic Tomaso Mangusta, or one of the lesser-known models on this list? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this journey through the fastest European cars of the 1960s, be sure to watch the video appearing on your screen right now, because we'll travel back one more decade to discover the fastest European cars of the 1950s. And trust me, many of those automobiles were already incredibly fast, long before Ferrari, Lamborghini, and Maserati came to dominate Europe's roads.